Good evening, everybody. Dusty Baker here with your sports update for the weekend, August the 5th. It is a Saturday. I hope you are having a great afternoon and evening wherever you may be. We're going to get right into this thing here. Many of you are probably coming back from practice today. And what I mean by that is it was an open practice for the Kentucky Wildcats football squad today. And needless to say, there was a lot of action going on out in Lexington as this open practice allowed quite a few fans, hundreds of fans in attendance this afternoon to watch their squad practicing. This is a very different looking squad, of course, and you can always lead off by talking about the quarterback right there, number 13, Devin Leary, a transfer coming over from NC State. In October of last year, Leary had suffered a right torn pectoral muscle, and that ultimately ended his season. It actually ended his career at NC State as well, as he transferred in the offseason to Kentucky. So this is a new offense as well, but he tells us that he's had some really good interaction already with the players. He's already kind of taken over as a leadership role as well. And pretty simply, he says that he's fitting in quite nicely, finding targets as well along the way, knowing that he could spread the ball around pretty easily this season.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not really the quarterback to zero in on one specific guy. You know, I tell them each and every play, like, regardless of if you're on the front side or back side of the concept, expect the ball because you never know when I'm coming to you. And, you know, my relationship with those guys, I mean, from the minute I stepped on campus, they brought me in like I've been here the whole time. And, you know, we just keep growing that relationship. And, I mean, from a talent standpoint, everyone in that room brings their own typical whatever talent they bring to the table. But, I mean, collectively as a unit, they work very well together. And, you know, I'm just very grateful to have those guys as my receivers.
Well, pretty simply, this is going to be a huge opportunity for him to kind of resurrect his career. He's a very talented quarterback. A lot of people calling him the best transfer quarterback in this class. So should be exciting to watch him. As for the team as a whole, we had a chance to catch up with head coach Mark Stoops following their open practice today. And pretty simply, he laid it out for where they are at the moment. We may be having some technical difficulties here with our broadcasting, unfortunately. We're going to try and get this to you if we can. Let's see. We got our actual video going on here, but let's see if we can get our sound here for Mark Stoops. This is live, as we always talk about, so naturally, sometimes these things happen. Let's see if we can get Mark here this time around. Nope, we cannot do that. Okay, well, we will work on that. But basically, Mark Stoops saying pretty simply that his team has executed properly, and he's really excited about what his squad is doing at the moment. One thing that I will tell you, I asked him about his quarterback, Devin Leary, and he pretty much made this very simple when I asked about his health. He said he's 100% healthy. He's good to go, should be ready to go for the regular season. So excited to see what can happen from that. That is good news, though, if you are a Big Blue fan, because last thing you want is a partially healthy newcomer in Devin Leary. But he seems very confident. We talked to Leary, and he's very confident with this offense, with the players around him. So Kentucky fans, you could breathe a sigh of relief because he is a special talent that it seems like will translate well over to Kentucky. Now, something I want to show you here, the fans had quite a bit to look forward to today, of course, just watching their teams out there. But how about watching some of the punt returners and kick returners just practicing, doing what they do every day? This was pretty cool to watch right here. Watch as they had 4 footballs in their hands. Now, obviously, it's really hard to get a 5th one as well. But believe it or not, the execution was possible. We watched multiple receivers getting 6 in their hands at one point in time. That was a pretty cool show to watch. It was a lot of fun out there today. Not terrible weather as well. So I think a lot of people really enjoyed the opportunity to be out there and see their team play. We're going to try Mark Stoops one more time. If it doesn't work, we're going to move on to our next segment. But I'm going to try and give you guys the actual word. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from Couch. All right, we're going to give it a shot here. Yeah, no, Mark's not wanting to talk to us today. So you can even see a little clip of him. There's a little technical error that we got going on. We'll fix that hopefully for tomorrow for you. One thing that I want to kind of jump to, how about here in Louisville, Jay Scrubb, who was born and raised in Louisville. He is now a player on the Boston Celtics, only 22 years old, but holding a camp for players in the area. We've seen a lot of camps going on around Louisville, in and around the city. Of course, we saw there was the Rondo camp. You had the Russell camp as well. Scrub adding to that number, and just simply trying to help Louisville kids in the area and giving them the opportunity to learn the game the right way from a player that, quite frankly, is still going up against the best day in and day out. We're going to see if he gets the chance to talk on this, and maybe Mark's just hiding in the shadows.
We got a kids camp going on right now, back to school camp, something that, I feel is necessary, for kids going back into school, so they can have the proper things in place, be around the proper people, have the right mentorship. So I feel like this is a big thing for the kids, and especially, me coming from Louisville, me having the experiences, here, this is really big for me.
Yeah, so obviously a great opportunity for the players to get out there and to have a chance to play with an NBA player. That is a very special opportunity. And of course, Scrub being able to give his time to people in the community and kids in the community. What a great opportunity. It looks like we actually have a soundbite from Mark that I will play for you here. This is Mark kind of talking a little bit more about the adaptation, as I was kind of alluding to earlier. So really quickly, back to Kentucky. Technical issues may have just worked themselves out. So here's what he had to say about his team actually having to adapt heading into this year.
Look at the roster, you look at the roster turnover, and there's not 100 guys in that room that have been there for years and have heard me talk and heard us build that culture. It's different. We have to do it very quickly. We have to adapt. We have to build this team. I feel like we have a very good football team, but we have to come together and be united and be a team very quickly.
I think that's pretty straightforward for you right there. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot of coach talk over the next couple of weeks, but Mark's a really great interview, I will tell you, and he's very blunt, honest. I think the thing that you want to hear more than anything else is that Leary is okay to go, and we saw him take a couple deep shots. He didn't land all of them today. Obviously, it's early in camp. He's still kind of working on a rapport with his receivers, which, by the way, that has been a key topic. The receiving core has garnered a lot of attention as far as the depth that they have there. I think a lot of people have kind of focused and honed in on that. Also, the offensive line trying to kind of turn a page from last year. They really struggled on the offensive line. So they actually allowed the most sacks out of any of the teams in the SEC. And if you're going to try and protect a quarterback that's already taken a really bad shot, as Devin Leary did a year ago with NC State, you got to protect him. So that is a common theme going on here at the moment with Kentucky football. Outside of Kentucky football, I will quickly address U of L as well, because the U of L squad looks really good this year. And the Cardinals, we have some expectations for them just simply because of Jeff Brom. I do want to mention that team at the moment, they are projected to win every single game this year. Now, that doesn't mean they're actually going to necessarily, according to Vegas, but the Vegas lines are favoring them. And needless to say, that is a good sign for Louisville fans that you got a team that on paper looks like it's attracting some attention. People are believing in the squad that they have together. And the big reason why is that guy, number 13. Kind of funny that both quarterbacks for U of L and for Kentucky are number 13. But that would be Jack Plummer. Jack Plummer, a transfer. He actually was with Purdue, then transferred over to Cal. And then he's reuniting now with Jeff Brom, who, of course, he worked with at Purdue, and trying to make connections along the way. One guy to keep an eye on would be number 1, Jamari Thrash. That is going to be his number 1 target, his number 1 receiver, as you see right there. Thrash has quite a bit of talent on both the actual speed element that he offers, and his hands are incredible as well. We saw that at Georgia State. So it should be a really exciting year for both UK and U of L. One thing that is kind of a commonality here, you have 2 transfer quarterbacks and you have 2 offenses that are going to look a little bit different than they did a year ago. Of course, for Kentucky, you're losing the running back Rodriguez, got drafted by Washington. So it should be kind of exciting to watch how this thing kind of turns the corner. Okay, we're going to move on here because we actually got a question out there. It is from Dale, and Dale is asking us some Major League Baseball question right here. Howdy, Dale. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great evening. Dale asks, is it time for the Reds to shake up the lineup? They're 9-11 with De La Cruz leading off. That is a phenomenal question. And I'm going to start off by saying this. This is a team that was riding high with De La Cruz in the cleanup spot. That's just how they were riding. And then all of a sudden, you had the injury to India, and you kind of saw David Bell shaking the lineup up quite a bit. I'm not going to sit here and tell you shaking up the lineup's a terrible idea, but just from watching past teams that have had streaks that have gone the right way for the Reds, as it has for the Reds this year, sometimes you can't, really break down what isn't broken. And the problem for the Reds, and I would say for David Bell mostly, is it's almost like he's over managing with this lineup. It's a lot of shakeups. It's almost like the addition of Christian Encarnacion Strand kind of made him feel like he had to get everybody in action in different ways. That should be a blessing, not a curse. And to have De La Cruz leading off, he's one of the top, believe it or not, MLB players in the league with ground ball rate. That's not a good thing. Okay, that's simply not a good thing. Granted, he's got a ton of speed, but the problem that I have is that he's hitting the ball on the ground a ton. He's not seeing pitches that he should be seeing if he was hitting behind, say, Matt McLain, who is clearly at this time a more pure hitter overall. De La Cruz has got the power. He's got the crazy speed, but McLain has put together an incredible season. McLain should be, in my opinion, in the 2-hole. You could sit and look at the leadoff spot, and there are a number of players that I think could fit that role. I think TJ Friedl, he had a 3-run bomb today in that 7-3 loss that they had to the Washington Nationals. Friedl could easily fit that job. I know he hasn't been hot necessarily, but Friedl is more of a leadoff kind of guy anyways. He sees pitches. He's more of an on-base percentage type player. That's not Elly De La Cruz. And so, yes, my firm belief is shake the lineup up back to kind of what you saw before the India injury. I know it's hard to kind of replace a guy like India, but let's be honest. India is a great player to a degree. His numbers were actually below the 800 OPS level that, you see from elite players or top tier players. So it's not like the Reds are dying and simply because of the fact that India hasn't been producing in a lineup here. It's just that this lineup doesn't really work well together in the current construction. Also, losing Fraley to injury, that was not a good loss by any means. That hurts them quite a bit. I personally would like to see Elly back in the cleanup spot. I think there's a lot of attention around where do you put Joey Votto. Votto can sit more in the 6th spot. There's a lot of ways to kind of go about this, but you have to have McLain, in my opinion, in the 2 or the 3 hole, and you put Friedl in the leadoff spot. I feel a lot better about that, I feel like, instead of where the construction is right now, where Elly just simply is not seeing good pitches, and he's so young that his approach at the plate is not necessarily good enough at the moment to handle what is, quite frankly, a league that is already figuring him out a little bit, throwing it low and away, kind of dirtying a lot of curveballs. He's swinging at a lot of pitches out of the zone that way that are going from north to south. So that's my opinion. I think that Elly is going to be one of the best players in all of baseball. Keep in mind, he's only 21. So that's something that, over time, this is going to be not a problem where Elly hits, but at the moment, Elly's got to see better pitches, put him behind McLain. That's really all I ask. And on top of that, I think the Reds kind of dug themselves in a bit of a hole. As I mentioned, the Reds falling 7-3 today, and not good news because Abbott, the starter that now you can almost crown him their ace at the moment, Andrew Abbott has not looked particularly good in his last 2 starts. He was wild all over the place today, walked 4 in the first 2 innings. He has strikeout stuff still, but he only struck out 3, just wasn't getting swings and misses, wasn't locating his stuff. And you can't really hound Abbott for that because the Reds didn't help themselves out at this deadline. And I've been kind of hyping on it for a little bit, but the Reds had an opportunity with guys in their farm system that have been thriving. They have guys that are blocked because of the young core that they've developed. And the hard thing, I guess, that they're looking at the moment is, do you really want to dish young talent? Edwin Arroyo is who I'm really alluding to more than anybody else. I feel like Edwin Arroyo could have easily pried away a very solid starter to help this rotation and help this team win now, instead of sitting here saying, well, it's been a good run, but let's turn our attention to much, further away. I get that you don't want to part with top prospects. I get that Arroyo came over a year ago in the Castillo trade, but you also got no LV Marte. So I don't know. Just kind of use your assets and try to maximize. That's always what I push for. But the Reds didn't do that at the deadline. They didn't help themselves out. They've gotten destroyed by hitters in Chicago, and now they're not looking much better with this losing streak against the Washington Nationals back at home. So hopefully that answered your question there, Dale. Thanks for the question. Also, shout out to James and Eric. They're part of Big Blue Nation. Both of them saying go Big Blue. And wonder if you guys were out there today. If you were, let me know. I would love to hear how your experience and your take was at being at the open practice and what your thoughts were maybe on what you saw, because for us at the moment, you're basically watching a Kentucky team that's just trying to figure it out, operational standpoint, I guess, of day to day. What is this going to look like? Remember, their opening kickoff will be September the 2nd, and that is against Ball State. As for Louisville, they kick off one day earlier. It's a Friday night in the Aflac I almost said Chick-fil-A game because that's what it was originally. It's now the Aflac kickoff game in Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the Atlanta Falcons, and Louisville will take on Georgia Tech. And that's a big game because that's already a conference matchup. So should be exciting to kick the season off that way. The last thing I'm going to close with here, actually, I got a couple things for you here, people. We're going to end with conference realignment. Before we get to that, we got a couple matchups this weekend that I want to talk about real quickly. First of all, LouCity. What a response they've had. They've not looked good throughout the majority of the summer. They come out yesterday with a 3-0 win over FC Tulsa. That was thanks to goals by Toch in the 31st minute, Lancaster in the 58th, and Harris in the 80th minute. All of a sudden, LouCity's riding a 2-game win streak, which is huge for them as they go into their match next week. That'll be at home. It's going to be a home match against Charleston Battery, a team that they had a draw with earlier in the year. So good news for them that they are transitioning maybe in the right direction after what was a really tough 3-game stretch that led to a 3-game losing streak earlier in the summer just a couple weeks ago. As for tonight, right now it's 7:51. So in 9 minutes, a new kickoff. It'll be Racing Louisville kicking off against Casey Current, and that kicks off at 8:00 p.m. in Kansas City. It's the last match of the Challenge Cup, the NWSL Challenge Cup. Racing Louisville is 4-1 in that. They had an undefeated streak until they faced the Houston Dash on the road. So another road match for them, and kicks at 8. We should have some recap for you of some kind tonight at 11 o'clock. The final thing that I want to talk to you about, and it's kind of what the entire nation is talking about at the moment, that would be this realignment. Okay, realignment has been the story of the summer, really. You have Arizona State, you have Arizona, you have Oregon, Washington, and you have Utah. The 5 of them, and I'll add Colorado to that mix as well because they did this just a couple weeks ago. But you look at these programs, and these are all very solid programs in the grand scheme of the college sports world. They are on the move. And not only are they on the move, but I think the bigger topic is pretty simply the Pac-12 is basically dead. I mean, it is hard to see what will actually happen with this. And I've try to keep updated with you on this. The latest news that I really have on the Pac-12 is pretty simply you just have the 4 teams. It's Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State. And no true decision has been made by any means. They are in conversations about the idea of merging possibly with the Mountain West. Here's the problem, okay? For those of you that will probably say, well, just take teams from the Mountain West or other teams. It costs over $30 million for a team to leave the Mountain West to go to the Pac-12. Do you really think a team like Boise State or Nevada or San Diego State is going to pay the kind of money that big market teams make to jump to a conference that has 4 teams and could very easily at the last second, jump to another conference? I mean, let's be honest. Stanford's going to be fine. They're going to figure themselves out. They actually won the Directors Cup, which is the overall best college in athletics championship. So that means, they weren't that great in football this last year. They were really good in baseball. But they're so good in other sports that they were able to kind of ascend. So they offer a lot. Cal doesn't offer as much. They offer academics, and then they struggle in a lot of sports. Baseball, from time to time, Cal can be really talented. But Oregon State is the one that's the most interesting to me because outside of football, where they're okay, they're generally pretty decent in basketball. They're generally really solid in baseball. Oregon State kind of offers this diversified portfolio. And so I'm curious to see if the Big 12 tries to jump on them and maybe Washington State as well. Either way, at the moment, it is hard to tell you what will happen to these 4 schools. Stanford's probably the safest. Can't tell you what the deal is going to be with Cal. Cal is a total mystery in my eyes right now. I just wonder if the Big 12 is going to be okay with jumping at another 2 teams, if they want to equalize with what the Big 10 has done, because the Big 10 has 18 schools at the moment. The Pac-12 obviously only has 4. The SEC has 16, and the Big 12 at the moment has 16. Expect some rebranding as well. One thing that I kind of pointed out, I thought this is a cool idea. Let me know if you like this idea. If the Big 12 goes out and they get Washington State and they get Oregon State, they can stay the Big 12. Like, the name can stay, because then that would mean that they are covering 12 different states. So rebranding would not have to happen. You could say, okay, the purpose of the Big 12 is 12 different states that we cover. That would easily work. One thing that I'm also wondering is, in kind of putting this back in terms of where we're at home right now, the ACC is in a bit of a pickle right now. And you have the TV contract. You have Florida State that reportedly wants to leave the conference. And if Florida State leaves the conference, all of a sudden you're losing pretty much your biggest piece as far as brand is concerned. How much of an impact does that have on ACC teams and schools? Probably a pretty significant one. I would imagine for Miami, that would be a ticket to saying, okay, we're out as well. Miami, honestly, Kendrick and I have talked about this a lot. Miami fits the bill as a school that just belongs in the Big Ten because of marketing. The market is huge, and they have the history that goes with it. Miami kind of fits the mold of what they would want there. Florida State fits more of a mold of the SEC, in my opinion, just because of location, but also the tradition, the excellence, the academics. It kind of fits more with the SEC schools. And obviously you have the rivalry that is with Florida on top of that. So Florida State kind of makes sense there. Clemson, to me, makes more sense in the SEC as well. I think Clemson would probably be another school on the move. And then you wonder about basketball, because UNC and Duke, imagine them in the Big 12. That would just be the greatest basketball conference of all time if they did that. So there's a lot to keep in mind. Louisville is the interesting one to me. I think Louisville would be the best fit if they had to be on the move to go to the Big 12 as well. It's a lot of like-minded schools, sizes. Louisville ultimately kind of offers similar academics and success on the field in different sports as these other Big 12 schools are. If you look at the Big 12 schools, realize all of them have something in common. They're all really pretty balanced for the most part. I would say Kansas may be the outlier, because Kansas is so good at basketball. And up until really this past season in football, football is not necessarily their strength, and it hasn't been for a long time. Outside of that, K-State pretty consistent. TCU very consistent. TCU is arguably the most consistent in the country at the moment. Keep in mind, they were in the college football playoff. They won a playoff game, went to the national championship. We're not going to talk about the national championship, but they made it to that point. Then in college basketball, they made it to the round of 32. And then in college baseball, they made it to the College World Series Final Four. So keep in mind, these are balanced teams. Baylor is consistently one of those teams to keep an eye on year to year. And now the addition of teams like Utah and bringing in Arizona, who's pretty good at basketball. I mean, there is some strength to that Big 12 conference. And so if I'm sitting here and I'm Louisville, I'm just keeping an eye on it at the moment, because the ACC is very clearly now the fourth conference out there. And it's not maybe a dramatic jump from the Big 12 to the ACC, but it is big enough that you sit here and you say, if Florida State is gone, if Miami leaves, if Clemson leaves, what exactly do we have here? That's the challenge, because you want good competition. I really wonder in the back of my head, if Pittsburgh has at least considered a move to the Big 12, considering West Virginia is in the Big 12 and they have the backyard brawl. And there's just a lot that points me to believe that there are going to be some ACC schools that are going to be filing for the Big 12 now that the Big 12 has resurrected itself. And on the flip side, RIP to the Pac-12. That's my homeland. I grew up in the LA area. So it's honestly, as a college sports fan, it's actually really sad. Like, it's really, really sad. To some people, it may just be a conference, but I grew up going to USC games, grew up watching USC face UCLA. And while that's still going to remain, that Pac-12 logo, it meant something to people on the West Coast. And now all of a sudden it means nothing, right? It just means nothing. And, you have the rivalries of USC and Stanford. That is now a busted matchup, right? Like, they're going to have to schedule that at a conference if that's even going to be able to happen. So that's what I struggle with, I guess, with this is it's more of a nostalgia thing, but money takes over. Money is the deciding factor on this. Now, if you're a Kentucky fan, you're in luck. Kentucky is in a perfectly fine spot because the SEC will still be number one as far as conference and what they breed. But Louisville fans, maybe just something to keep an eye on is the idea that maybe it won't be the ACC much longer or down the road like you expect or think, because things that are going right now, I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy what we are witnessing. Okay, with that in mind, that is our sports talk for the weekend. I'll be back here on Sunday as well. Kendrick Haskins out for the week. He's on a much-needed vacation, very well-deserved. So you're going to be stuck with me for the next week. So do me a favor. Number one, if you're watching this, you can find me very easily right here at Dusty Baker TV. You can find me on the X, or as I like to call it, Twitter. That's how it should be called. And you can follow me there. You can also follow at Wave News Sports, our Twitter account, where it is everything and anything that is Louisville and Kentucky. And we're here for you. So please ask us more questions, any topics you like to have us discuss. Just as Dale had asked, thank you again, Dale, for that question. Kind of helped lead into that topic. So that was very great. Outside of that, though, I will sign off, and I wish you guys a wonderful evening. Enjoy. It's 8:00 p.m. And if you're up late tonight, watch us on at 11 o'clock. We'll have more coverage for you right here from Wave News and Wave Sports as well. Until then, though, hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your evening with family and friends. And we'll see you also on Sunday as well. Take care and have a good night.